How can we know God's will for our lives and be able to submit to it? See, sometimes in the most important decisions of our lives, like what career we're going to take, we tend to make an inventory of the things we like, of our skills, of our talents, and we try to make our own plans as to what we are meant to do. But what if God had an input into what you were going to do? What if God had a plan all along for you to be able to work in a specific career? Maybe it's not a career, maybe it's different things, but God's direction in your life is important for us to find out. What if you needed to get a little uncomfortable for God to be able to speak to you? Today, we're going to hear a story about a guy who did just that. Hello and welcome to Empowering Disciples, where we are empowering disciples to make disciples. My name is Louis Sebastian, and I'll be your host here. Today, we're going to be hearing a story from a young man named CJ who recently went on a missions trip. Our conversation helped us to understand how God sometimes challenges you to do things and to get uncomfortable for you to be able to grow in your faith. We're going to see how this step of faith that he took encouraged him to be able to grow in different areas of his life and actually change the trajectory of where he was going. So stick around and hear the first part of our 3-part episode on our interview here with CJ. Today we have a special guest with us. His name is CJ, and he's joining us today, and we're going to be talking a little bit about his mission trip to Dominican Republic that he took this past summer, right? Yes. And we're going to be talking a little bit about what you learned from there, what were some of your experiences, and man, I've known you for now almost 4 years.
It really has been 4 years. Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's been almost 4 years, and you're part of our young adults ministry. You're part of what we're doing in here. And man, I just, we had a good conversation last time, and I wanted to just follow up with you and wanted to see what God had been doing in your life, especially through that trip that we just took. And so I just want you to feel comfortable, want you to feel welcome, want you guys to just join us in this conversation that we're going to have. And man, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do. What are you up to now? What are you doing in life?
Well, my name's Carlos Gonzalez. Everyone calls me CJ. But right now I'm a student at Miami-Dade College. I'm studying building construction technologies. So at the end goal, I can be a general contractor.
Okay.
And right now I'm working for a public adjuster's firm. And right now I'm finishing up a class so that I can get my license for the public adjusting. And then I might actually be graduating this semester if I can get one more class that I need to talk to the school about. So that might be pretty good too.
Okay, good. And you told me you're studying right now, right? Like you're studying for that test, you're studying to get those things done.
Yes, okay. It's been a mission, but it's going to be worth it in the end. So that's the goal.
Cool, man. Cool. Well, tell me a little bit about your church background, because I know you grew up in the church. I know you had grown up just going to church all the time, and your family is very involved in the church. So tell me a little bit about that time growing up.
So ever since I can remember, my family's been going to church. Like I was raised in the church. I was saved at a young age. I actually attended Gladeview for all my life until middle school, because it doesn't go all the way up to high school. So I grew up here, and I know this place is like a second home to me. And my whole life, my mom and dad have been such a great source of wealth and knowledge when it comes to the Lord. My mom definitely was there for me, teaching me so many different things about the word and stuff like that. My dad was always an encouragement, showing me what a father should be and what a man should be according to the Bible. And my siblings, as much as they bother me sometimes, I love them so very much. And they also are sometimes really full of wisdom, especially my younger brother. He's very wise when he wants to be. And my sister is very responsible. And I really do appreciate the family and the gift that the Lord has given me with my family.
Yeah, I know. I know. Whenever I hung out with you guys, it's like a crazy dynamic. like I wish these cameras could be around just to watch your whole family interact.
My dad says that on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's a trip, man. I love it. Well, I know your mom was a big influence in your life, especially spiritually. I know whenever we have conversations like, who are people you admire and who are people you look up to, your mom always comes up. What is it about your mom that she inspires so much faith in you?
Yeah, the word to begin. My mom is just, She's a prayer warrior. Every single time I remember when I was younger, if anything was going wrong, she would sit down with all three of us, if it had to do with all of us, and she would sit down with us and explain to us that like the Lord really will be there for us. He's our Father. He'll be with us. He'll talk to us. He'll shepherd us. And just I have both my parents are very faith driven, both in their own unique ways, but my mom can take almost any situation and turn it into a learning experience for the Lord. And sometimes it might be annoying because you're getting fussed at every once in a while, but she gives me quite a lot of life lessons, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah. Does it ever feel like you may never be able to live up to her standard? Because, like, I mean, your mom's
she's amazing.
She has a lot of spiritual wisdom. She has a lot of just insight into seeing things from a different perspective, just the prayer life. I mean, and sometimes that could be intimidating, right? And so growing up in a house like that, did it ever feel like, man, it's going to be hard for me to be anything like my mom? Or even like, is that what a Christian should do? And sometimes it might seem a little overwhelming, right?
Yeah. Actually, I had a talk with my mom the other day, and she was saying like, CJ, you're always ragging on me. You're always bringing out all my flaws. And I thought to myself, I was like, dang, that's crazy. Because like, to me, she has so many, like her positive, like her spiritual life outweighs her flaws infinitely. So that's why I'm like, oh, it's like when I bring them up, like it's as jokingly, but sometimes she doesn't see it that way. She doesn't realize how amazing she really is when it comes to her spiritual life, like a mom, a teacher, everything. Yeah. And so, and I have definitely, like as a kid, I was like, dang. And sometimes every once in a while, I'll see my mom doing something like involving the Lord in her spiritual walk. And I'm like, I want that. Like, I wish, like, I want to work on that. And that's what I've really been striving towards recently, is to have, like, faith like my parents. Because my dad is, like, the amount of faith he has in the Lord to carry him through, like, his life. When it comes to finances, his family, his job, everything, he relies on the Lord. I always ask him, like, how the heck do we manage? And he's like, no, the Lord's got my back. Like, he's, like, he's got me. And I'm like, that's crazy amount of faith. Yeah. And my mom's the same way. She'll have a student, maybe or one or two, that's just like really struggling, and all she wants to do is pray with that kid and help them, not only spiritually, not only as a teacher, but like she wants them to grow. And it's so admirable. And I don't think I tell her that enough. And so I probably should.
Maybe she'll watch this.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you have a huge connection with your family. You would say your family is very important to you.
Absolutely.
I mean, pretty much everything to you in your life, right? And so now, going into this year, going into the buildup of this idea that you had of going to the Dominican Republic, and here's the kicker, by yourself, leaving behind the family. Talk to me about how did this idea even come up? I mean, I know there was a previous trip that you guys took together. And so talk a little bit about that trip before and how that kind of influenced you and kind of challenged you to make this trip on your own.
So definitely at around that time, I was studying video game design because it had something to do with Miami Dade College, and it was a program that had...
No, sorry to interrupt, but just for clarification, around that time, you mean the previous year?
The previous year, yes.
Okay, so a year ago.
Yeah, so a year ago, I was in a video game design, and I was doing coding, and I absolutely hated that class. I was failing it. And
I remember.
was like, yeah, that was a rough time.
Yeah.
And then I remember I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like, I know I can learn it, but this professor, he's not doing it for me. And I just really, like, I'm not feeling it. So I need to leave. So I decided that I was going to try to switch majors, but I didn't know to what. So I was at this place where I was like, God, my entire life, I thought I was going to follow this one route. And now that I'm almost on track to doing that, it just doesn't feel right. Like, this doesn't feel like what I'm supposed to be doing. So Lord, what is that? I thought I was doing this my whole life. Yeah. And for that to suddenly come crashing down, I was like, I don't know what to do. And at that same time, we just so happened to go on spring break to the Dominican Republic for the first time. And my mom, the second she heard mission trip to Dominican Republic, she signed us up immediately. She actually got up in the middle of the service and wrote our names down.
Because you guys are from there.
Yes, we're Dominican. Okay. So it was so funny to see her do that. And so we went, and so my mindset going into that trip was, oh, we're building a church. That's it. We're just going, building a church, we're leaving.
So just for context, because I know a lot of people watching this may not know what you were doing. So so what was it? What was like the goal of that trip?
So the organization was called Time Missions, and their goals are to build churches in communities, but not only build communities because they want a pastor to them. So they go to communities that they find that they need a place to worship, and then they'll go minister to those people throughout the week, or at least an area nearby, and then invite them to the church that we built. And then throughout the week, we would build panels like door panels, wall panels, window panels, trusses, roofs. So we built all that from just wood and metal sheets. Everything was hand done. We had these templates that we would use to build all of them. And throughout the week, we would assemble them. And then on the second to last day, normally, we would actually load up, or the third to last day, we would load up all of the panels. And then the next morning, we would wake up super early in the morning to go drive to the site, build it, and then pray over it, and give the lock was a symbolism of us giving the pastor the church.
The key.
Yes, the key.
Okay.
And so we give that to them, and then we would go rest up for the next day, and then the group would leave. So that's basically the format. Yeah. And
there's a lot of you who went, right?
There was quite a few of us from the church who went. I can't remember everybody off the top of my head right now, but it was, I'd say maybe roughly out of 14 to 20 of us, I think, in general. It was a good group. I got to meet a lot of people in the community, like our church community, that I hadn't talked to before. Yeah. And now I know a lot of them, and it's a lot. It grew, not only it wasn't a spiritual experience, but it was also a growing experience in the church, I'd say. Yeah. And it was beautiful to watch. And I remember I was going there and I was like, okay, we're just building. That's all we're doing. And then when I got there the first day, we didn't do anything. And I was like, what's going on? Like, I thought we were building. And then the Sunday came and we just did a worship. And I was like, okay, when do we start building? Like, what's going on? And then we finally started building. I had a great time. And then the second day, we went somewhere to minister to kids. And I was like, I didn't know. What are we doing? I thought we were just, guys, why aren't we building churches? Why are we going out? Yeah. And then I realized that we're not only building churches, we're ministering to the kids. And that's when I was like, dang, this is really great. This isn't just building a church. This is ministering. Yeah. And that's where I realized, I was like, I actually enjoy this. Like, this is beneficial for me. Like, I would love to do this again. And I remember telling my dad during one of our Coke breaks, and I was like, man, I would really love to do this for a living, like building like churches or building houses, doing something like that. And my dad goes, CJ, that's general contracting. And I was like, is it really? And he was like, yes. And I was like, oh, then I want to do that. That's what I want to do. And so that's what actually set me on the path that I am now. Wow. And ever since then, I was like, dang, I really enjoyed being there. Not only was it full of Dominicans, like it was also like everyone there was so kind, so loving, so full of the spirit. Yeah. And I was like, man, I would love to come back here with the church. And I remember when we came back, I asked you, I think, I was like, oh, Pastor, are we going to come back here next year? Yeah. And you're like, I really don't know what to tell you. And I was like,
really didn't know.
So I was like, oh, I'm so excited. And then, so that's how I got introduced the first time. And what led me to going by my own this past summer.
So hold on. So you, because that's a lot of stuff, man. So you're telling me that on this mission trip, you felt like the mission that you were doing for the people made you change your career. And that's a big step, man. That's a big deal. Like, imagine your life right now if you hadn't taken that trip. And so I think sometimes we miss those little things that God does in our lives. And I think when we pay attention to where God is at work, and when we are open, like you were open and willing to go, maybe you didn't sign up yourself, your mom might have signed you up for it, but it exposed you to something that you probably weren't aware of. And when you saw that happen, man, that changed your life, that impacted you. And it brought about a passion that you didn't realize you had. And so that's interesting, man. That's cool. Hello, I hope you're finding this episode encouraging. We're going to continue our episode in a moment, but I wanted to encourage you now that if you are finding today's episode helpful, to help us spread the message with others. And the ways you can do that is by subscribing to our podcast or wherever it is that you are watching this from or listening to this from. And I want to encourage you to rate and review our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, wherever it is that you're watching this from. And share this with a friend. We'd love for you to be able to share this with others who also need to be encouraged to disciple others. Well, now let's continue to hear our interview with CJ.
So the year passes. You went for spring break. Now, you didn't know if we were going or if we were not going. So talk to me about this year.
So what happened, I think it was around September or October, somewhere around there. And so one of the people that we met in the Dominican Republic was having a baby. Her name was Daneris. And she decided to fly down here to come meet with my family because my family grew close to them. So we decided to hang out, and she only spoke Spanish, which is not my strong suit. But she was talking to me and my mom, and she was like, "Oh, why don't you intern with us?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "Well, we have a summer program where we'll take some people from the States or from the Dominican Republic, and we'll bring them here, and they'll stay the whole summer. And they're the people who will help with all the groups." And I was like, that's not a bad idea. Like, I don't mind that at all. Like, that sounds like a great time doing what I did there for a straight month. That sounds amazing. He was like, no, 2 months, like the whole summer. And I was like, oh, the whole summer. I was like, oh, dang, that's a lot, but I'm willing to do it. Like, I'm willing to give it like a shot. So that's what got me into thinking about it, at least. And then I remember I wanted somebody else to come with me. I was like, I just want one other person from the church, maybe from my family, friends, something. But that never ended up happening. So I went by myself, and the process.
So you were expecting somebody to go with you?
I was hoping somebody wanted me. I wasn't expecting it, but I was hoping. I was like, having one other person might make this a little bit easier, but I'm okay. Like, I'm content with the fact that I might not be able to go with somebody else.
So when you made that decision, obviously it was something that you were going to do for the whole summer and by yourself without the family. Now, you had never been away from your family.
That was the first time that I had ever been away from my family for that long period of time. Not even like a month before was the first time I like went on a trip with people that wasn't my family or my school. And it was to Orlando only. And I remember my mom was like freaking out. She's like, I don't know if I want to do that. And I was like, well, I'm going to be in the Dominican Republic for like a month or two. So
So your family was freaking out too. So it wasn't just you.
So it wasn't just me,
Okay.
I didn't start freaking out until like the week before, and I was like, oh dang, I'm actually gonna leave. Like before that I was like, oh, I'm gonna go, it's gonna be great. And like the week before I was like, oh man, like I'm going, like this is gonna happen. And so I completely actually forgot, because I've never flown by myself before. Normally when we fly with our family, my dad deals with all the flight stuff. And so I remember we got to the airport, and I was like, CJ, you did the online check-in, right? And I was like, what's that? And he was like, CJ, I told you to check your email. I was like, yeah, I got an email that said that I got the flight. Like, what about it? He was like, you're supposed to do online check-in. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm doing that now. So we did it.
Adulting is hard.
Adulting is something I still got to get used to. And so it was a little scary, because not only was it my first time flying by myself, but I was flying somewhere to a place where I knew the people, but I didn't know the language as well. So having to get to the airport and managing was a little bit scary. I started practicing my Spanish more and more and more. And right before the trip, did me mildly good. It didn't do much, but it did something. And so I get there, and I finally land. I meet everyone from Time Missions, and I was like, okay, I'm here. I made it. I did it. And as nervous as I was, the second I got there and I saw the people that I knew, I was like, okay, I'll be fine. Like, even though I'm not going to see my family, even though I'm far away from home. And I actually ended up not staying the full summer, because I had just recently gotten a job with my public adjusting firm. And I didn't want, because I had just started, I didn't want to say, oh guys, I'm out for 2 months, bye. So, and also school, because I needed to register and all that stuff. So I got worried. So I asked them to not cut me some slack, but give me an exception to the rule to allow me to be there only for 1 month. And they said that's the only time they had ever done that, just because of my circumstances, and that I had recommendations from the people from the past. So I was able to stay for half the summer. So I only stayed from towards the beginning of June till the beginning of July. So I believe it was June 3rd I left. And July, I think like 7th, I came back. Something around that
About
time.
a month.
So like about a month. I think it was 5 weeks in total. It was 5 weeks in total.
I'll give you the extra week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was a 10-week thing, and I was there for half of it. I was only there for half the groups. So that's the reason why I remember it like that. And man, it was a great feeling to be back there, because I was like, man, it's been over a year since I've been there. I don't feel like I might not know the place. The second I walked on to the property, I was like, this feels like not home, but this feels like familiarity. And I immediately was like, okay, where am I sleeping? Because last time we had went during the spring break trip, there was 2 places that they were staying. The adults ended up staying in the Time house, which is where it was AC, had warm water. And then there was the bunks. I like to call them the bunks. And no AC, open windows, bunk beds everywhere, and cold
That's where
showers.
you stayed last time.
That's where I stayed last time.
Okay.
So I was like,
so really suffering for Christ.
Suffering for Christ.
Okay.
I don't like the cold.
No.
I don't like cold water at all. So it was it was not.
You're not into like the ice plunge. And, no.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You're too Miami for that. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
And so I was like, okay, so where are we gonna be sleeping? I didn't want to say like, oh, are we sleeping in the rooms or are we sleeping in the house? I was like, so where are we sleeping? And like, oh, in the rooms that you guys were in last time. I was like, okay.
Okay.
So cold water.
Cold showers. All right.
And then I opened up my bag to unpack, and I realized I forgot my pillow. I forgot a fan.
Okay.
And there was one more thing I forgot. Oh, and I forgot, what was it? I think I forgot like cream, like some lotion and stuff like that. And I was like, so I'm not sleeping with a pillow tonight because I forgot it.
They don't have pillows?
No, so the first night I didn't want to ask for a pillow because like that makes me seem so unprepared. So
who brings their? I'm sorry, I've never taken a pillow on a mission trip.
The thing is, they told you to bring your own pillow.
Oh, okay, so it was part of the list.
Yeah, it was a part of the list.
Fault.
So it was my fault.
Okay, it's your fault.
What I remember I ended up doing was that I was trying to fit all my stuff in a bag, and I had taken out my pillow from the bag, from one of the bags, and I thought I put it back in, but I guess I tossed it back on my bed because I wasn't thinking. Okay. And I had asked my brother. I called my brother, and I was like, "Hey, can you go in my room real quick?" He's like, "Why?" I was like, "Just go." He's like, "Is there a pillow on the floor?" He was like, "No." I was like, "Is there a pillow on my bed?" He said, "Yes." I was like, "Okay, thank you." And I hung up, and I was like,
"Joy,
this could be great."
Okay.
And I ended up using my towel as a pillow because I knew I was gonna sweat anyways. Okay. So I was like, I might as well.
Okay.
So that was a fun experience. I eventually did get a pillow. I did.
Okay. Good. I'm glad you didn't spend a whole 5 weeks with no pillow.
Yeah, and I also bought a fan because everyone had a fan, and I was like, I need a fan. And I actually got such a big fan. I was like a fan, like a huge fan, and people who slept behind me would feel the feel the fan. So people started lining up behind me to get the hair.
You're the fan guy.
Yep.
The fan guy.
So.
All right. So you are flying to Dominican Republic. You don't know the language. You're by yourself, or I mean, with the people there, but your family is not there. You're excited. You're a little bit scared. So talk to me about that first couple of weeks experience.
So if I remember correctly, we had about a week or a couple days where it was just us prepping for the first group. Okay. And so they were explaining everything, and they knew.
So just for clarification, so when you say the first group, what does that mean?
Okay, so how it works, or how Time Missions works, is that they have the missionaries, they have the interns, and they have the
directors.
I would say volunteers.
Okay.
And then they have the groups.
Okay.
So that's how I categorize them, at least. That's how I remember it. The missionaries are the people, they're there all the time. They're there. That's basically their job, to be there and minister to everybody. Then there's the interns, which are the people who stay the whole summer. Okay. And they're there for every single group.
That's who you were?
Yes, that's what I was. I was an intern. And then there's what did I just call them? I called them
I don't know.
Volunteers. I called them volunteers. And the volunteers are Dominicans who they'll pick out for a week to help with a group. Okay. The groups are people, so like our church, what we did was they grab churches from the States and they'll bring them down to the Dominican Republic and they'll be doing what they do. Okay.
So you were, before the first trip, you were a group, and now you're an intern.
And now I was an intern,
Got it. Okay.
So we started off with, I believe, 4 or 5 interns. It was 3 guys, 2 girls, and we eventually got one more kind of intern. That's what we called them. We call him like an intern, but air quotes, because he wasn't registered to be an intern.
Uh-huh.
But since my situation where I was only staying for half the summer, they needed one extra person. So they decided to choose him.
Okay.
And then that group of 6, I got really close to, and I still to this day love them so very much. I will sporadically text each other and check how we're doing. And I'm so glad I was able to meet them, and I grew pretty close to them. They would always give me flack because I didn't speak Spanish and I was Dominican, and they said, "You're not Dominican," and I was like, "Yes, I am. I just can't speak the language." And they're like, "But that, no."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Guys, think about it. I talk like one. I look like one. I speak like one. I do everything like a Dominican. I just can't speak the language." And they're like, "Okay, fine, we'll give it to you." And I was like, "Thank you."
Okay.
So that was fun. We always joked around. And then there was Hasiel, who was the coordinator for the interns.
Okay.
And I got close to him. We later found out we have basically the same interests, basically the same personality.
Yeah.
And it was really funny because everyone kept calling me his kid.
Okay.
So
he adopted
was,
you.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
said that he was like my adopted dad the trip.
Nice.
So that was really fun. And then just everyone else there at Time Missions was so welcoming and so friendly. It was great. I felt, even though I wasn't with my family, I felt at home there after a while. And so the first week, like I said, was dedicated to learning what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was in Spanish, so I had to translate it myself. And I was like, okay, I'm getting keywords. So basically what they're saying is, act like a Christian. Like, don't do anything that would taint the name of the Lord. So I was like, okay, I can do that. That's the rules.
Okay.
And then that week, we actually unloaded all of the lumber that we would use for the next couple weeks.
Okay.
And all of our shoulders were sore because we all wanted to carry all like the wood pieces on our shoulders by ourselves. And
so everything was in Spanish?
Majority of it
all
was.
of the instructions, and so there was no English for you?
So for the reason why was because normally they'll have a couple interns from the States, a couple interns from the Dominican Republic. But everyone there was basically from the Dominican Republic, except one of the girls. She was from Haiti.
Okay.
But she came there to intern.
Okay.
And everyone else is Dominican, so everyone knew Spanish. So I was the only one who semi-knew Spanish. And so they're like, oh, we can do everything in Spanish.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. So they would always ask me, CJ, are you following? And I'm like, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Which I was for the most part, just not
fully,
yeah.
It's like those IKEA manuals. Like, you kind of understand what's going on, and you could tell by the pictures and the hand signs. But,
exactly.
Okay, got it.
So it was really fun, and we got to know each other, and it was a really great time. And we unloaded the wood. None of us enjoyed it, but we had a good time.
Okay.
And then the first group came, and that's when we also learned that we needed to explain the instructions to everybody. And since a lot of the Dominicans didn't have perfect English, the first week or the first group, they made me do all the instructions. And I played
You just love public speaking, don't you?
kind of ish. Not like, if I have to, I'll do it, but it's not my main focus. But I don't mind it. So, but I can have charisma when I want to be, apparently. I learned that on the trip.
Okay.
And so actually my mindset was, I'm gonna imitate my sister. Because my sister's so outgoing and so nice and so like, she's just amazing with like group leading. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to act like my sister this trip. That's my goal.
Okay.
I remember I told her that. She was very happy.
Yeah. She has quite a personality.
She does.
Okay.
Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the not so better.
Okay.
But yeah, and so the first week was a little rough. Not for the sense of like the work was hard or anything like that. It was just me trying to remember, because they kept asking me, hey, CJ, you remember how to build these panels? Or hey, CJ, you remember how to do this? And I'll be like, I think so. I think I remember. And I'll start doing it, and I was like, I kind of remember, but I want to go ask just in case.
Yeah.
And so I would go back and forth asking everybody, like, hey, is this how you do it? Is this how you're supposed to do it? What is this one? Is this the one okay? Because, you know, in the groups, the interns are like the leaders. We're the ones telling everybody, like instructing them, guiding them.
Yeah.
When the missionaries can't. So it's a lot of responsibility. And I was like, okay, I need to focus up. Like, this is real. Like, I'm not, this isn't me trying to come here to have fun on vacation. No, this is me doing the Lord's work. So I need to focus.
Yeah.
And I definitely was able to step up a little bit, but then I kept forgetting that, like, when I saw other people like around my age, I would try to goof off a little bit. And I was like, nope, gotta focus. I gotta stay on task.
Yeah.
And so, but I got close to a lot of them. Specifically the first group. The first group I got close with pretty good, because I'd also do this trick to every single group. that I know just enough Spanish to greet them in Spanish and ask if they know Spanish. And I can say it in a convincing enough accent to where it sounds like I don't know English at all.
Yeah. And these are English speaking.
These are English speakers. Oh, this will never work on Spanish speakers. So I did it, and they'll be like, hi, hello. And I was like, nah, I'm just playing with you guys. And they're like, what? And I remember I talked to some of the people afterwards, and they're like, oh, because we had to introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
That was one of the first things we did on the day. We had to introduce ourselves, the missionaries, the interns, everybody who was working there. We had to introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey guys, I am Dominican, but I was born in Miami, Florida, and I've lived there my whole life.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's why he speaks so good English. And I was like, really that convincing? There's no way I was that convincing. So
yeah,
it was so much. It was
so they thought you were Dominican through and through.
Absolutely.
Until they heard you speak.
Yeah. Anytime they were like, oh, we needed Dominicans help for something, they looked to me. The second they said we need Spanish speaker, I was like, guys, do not. I'm American. As American, like, so I'd flop a lot.
Okay.
But yeah, it was.
So there was some challenges, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of that episode. I hope that encouraged and challenged you in your faith. Next time, we're going to be hearing how CJ had to face some challenges, specifically as it relates to temptation. And we're going to find out how running away from temptation may not solve the problem. We're going to see how we can face temptation head on through the power of God helping us resist temptation. Hey, I want to remind you also to subscribe to our channel so that you can stay up to date to all of the different things that are happening here at Empowering Disciples, and rate us and review us on whatever platform you are watching us on. Hey, here at Empowering Disciples, we are empowering disciples to make disciples. So I pray that God may encourage and challenge you to grow in your faith so that you can disciple others.